Hamburg, the second largest city in Germany and as big as New York. But Hamburg is often regarded as a gloomy and rainy city. And yet many people prefer this city over Berlin. But why? Hamburg is easy to get around. I managed to go basically everywhere I wanted by foot. I mean, I collected 20,000 steps every day, which is a bit too much for a normal day. But I do enjoy walking and saving some money where I can. Plus, by walking, you can also discover some hidden gems. If you compare Hamburg to Berlin, Berlin was a city where you definitely needed public transport to get to the sites you wanted to see. The one disadvantage is that Hamburg airport seems pretty useless. At least when I tried looking up flights from Hamburg to Amsterdam, I couldn't find any, unless I fly to Munich first and then to Amsterdam, which is a complete waste of time. Nevertheless, if you want to go further away from the city, or you just don't like walking that much, then the city offers an efficient network of metro lines, buses and ferries. If the €49 Germany ticket disappears, a monthly pass for public transport in Hamburg would be around €69. You can also rent these scooters. I don't think they have a great reputation in cities like this, but in Hamburg they seem to be more or less under control. They're not just laying around everywhere and blocking the street. So that's a good thing. Or you can also rent a bike, or buy a bike if you decide to live here. Hamburg is ranked 13th out of 90 cities when it comes to bike friendliness. But after living in the Netherlands and recovering from a weird phobia of riding bikes, it would take me about a year to get actually comfortable enough to start riding a bike here. Personally. You might not be the case. There are many big and well-implemented bike roads. However, there are sometimes inconsistencies in the road, or they might end abruptly, or merge into the street with the cars. Many people do bike here, even in bad weather, but it seems like there are more cars than there are bikes, unlike in Amsterdam, or any other Dutch city really. And Germany overall likes using sports bikes, so I don't know why. I feel like they're not that comfortable. Is it comfortable to bike like that? Why are they so tense? Just relax, get a grandma bike, they're much more comfortable. I think Hamburg has accomplished a very beautiful blend of architecture. They have Romanesque churches, Art Nouveau mansions, neo-Gothic warehouses, modern and sleek offices and more. I especially like how the modern glass offices complement each other so well with the brick warehouse look. I also like how they build new buildings and try to blend them in by using similar materials or styles. But some of them might look not as impressive or just boring compared to the old ones. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to fully romanticize the city, because there's also a lot of ugly sides to this. Take the train station for example. I think it's very beautiful on the inside and it has many shops. The main entrance also looks quite stunning, but it's a German train station. You can't expect it to be perfect. So I'm not planning on showing just the picture-perfect side of Hamburg. There's lots of construction going on, homelessness, and teens. I'm a bit scared of them. Not gonna lie. And I also saw quite some sketchy people, and one of them was just shouting and preaching to the Bible. So that's how it is in big cities. However, I am even more impressed by the city, considering that during the World War II, Hamburg suffered a lot from targeted bombing. And so, as a result, almost more than half the city was destroyed. Which, personally, I was really surprised to hear because it doesn't really seem like it. But because of Hamburg's architecture, there are multiple sites that are under the UNESCO World Heritage. Like the Speicherstadt, the largest warehouse in the world for precious goods like coffee, tea, cacao, and spices. It also contains 1/3 of the world's Persian carpet stock. Nowadays, the space is also used for offices and museums. Then we also have Chile House. Chile House? Is that how you pronounce it? This is one of Hamburg's most impressive buildings. It is an exceptional example of the 1920s brick expressionism style of architecture. I didn't even know this style existed, so that's pretty cool. Since the building's completion in 1924, it has been the center of international marine trade. Today, the impressive landmark also houses more office spaces, shops and restaurants. Then what's also cool about the city is that it has Europe's longest party street. And by party I mean like party, if you know what I mean. Reeperbahn. Reeperbahn? Plus it's also a world famous red light district. So It has countless bars, clubs, and discos along the street. To be honest, I'm really glad I came here during the morning, because even at daytime alone as a woman, I didn't fully feel safe. But maybe it's just me. Hamburg is a big city, and yes, a city is a city with many buildings, cobblestone and concrete. And Hamburg is particularly surrounded on all sides by water. The Alster River and the River Elbe. And all this water means that there's abundance of canals, streams, and many bridges. So imagine Venice, but more gloomy and grey. Or Amsterdam, but bigger and less risky to park your car. The city has over 2,000 bridges, which is more than Amsterdam and Venice combined. Hamburg also is a major port city. Once called Germany's gateway to the world, today the port of Hamburg is not only the largest seaport in Germany, but third largest in Europe. Then, if you're looking to touch some grass, they also have a huge park not that far away from the city center. The park includes a botanical garden, a place for children to play, and a Japanese garden. Plus, they also have an ice rink? What is this? Oh, it's a roller skating rink. Wow, that's pretty cool. This city has lots to offer for tourists and for its locals. It has 45 theaters and around 100 music venues and clubs. Maybe it's still not as many as Berlin, but it's plenty to keep you occupied and not bored for quite some time. Plus, it also has over 50 museums. And some of them I even visited. But they have the Museum of Illusion, the Miniature Wonderland. For a regular ticket it was 20 euros, which is pretty expensive, but I mean, look at this. It's quite impressive. It's not necessarily a museum, so don't expect it to be really quiet. Like for example an art museum. There's quite some children running around, which is completely fine. But it's still really nice to visit. A couple of boat museums, which one of them I did visit, and for 6 euros it was quite cute. Then there is Kunsthalle, one of the most important and largest art museums in Germany. I wanted to visit it, but it was a bit out of my budget. Then the Chocolate Museum, the Coffee Museum. With an 8 euro ticket you get an audio guided tour that explains the history of coffee and how it's connected to Hamburg. Apparently in the end of the 19th century, Hamburg Coffee Exchange became the third most important coffee exchange in the world, after New York and Le Havre. And apparently Germany was the first one to implement the decaffeination method commercially, meaning they were selling decaf. Then they have a museum dedicated to customs and taxes, and how pirates tried to avoid them. I feel like it's pretty on brand to Germany. International Marine Museum, a Dialogue in the Dark Museum. It is a cool kind of experience that creates mutual awareness and respect for people with visual and hearing disabilities, as well as for elderly citizens. And last but certainly not least, the Hamburg Dungeon. Yeah, moving on. I mean, if you're planning on seeing many museums in one day, or in a couple of days, you can consider buying the Hamburg card. That gives you a discount to many places and free public transport around Hamburg for those days. But personally, I decided to skip on it because I didn't fully benefit from having it, at least when I visited the city. Food. I mean, Hamburg doesn't have like any remarkably amazing food like France or Italy, but they do have some signature dishes, like Franzbrötchen, a French roll allegedly influenced by Napoleon's troops. I would describe it like a cinnamon roll, but someone stepped on it. The first time I did try it, I wasn't that impressed, but this time I went to a specific location that specializes in Franzbrötchen, and oh my goodness, 10 out of 10. Couldn't recommend more, especially if you love cinnamon stuff. Then they have currywurst. Well, there's a debate between who did it first, Hamburg or Berlin, but ultimately it's not my place to say anything about it. Seafood and seafood sandwiches. Not really a big fan of seafood, but people do love them. This fruit jelly thing in a tub. It's the jelly you find on the side when you buy a flavored yogurt, but like a whole tub of it. Apparently this is from Hamburg. If it's true, that's pretty cool. Fritz Cola. If you like cola and you're visiting Germany, consider trying this out. It tastes just like the real thing, but it's with a bit less sugar and a bit more caffeine, and with a hint of lemon. They also have a lot of different flavors, so give it a try. And since I'm in Hamburg, I had to have some hamburgers. I mean, I know hamburgers weren't invented here, but I would like to think that they were. So moving on. Apart from German food and local specialties, they have lots of international cuisine. And I feel like food and restaurants can really show how diverse or not diverse a city may be. Hamburg is, by German standards, probably the second most culturally diverse city after Berlin. But it's definitely not a cultural melting pot like in the US. German citizens make up 70 to 80% of Hamburg's inhabitants, and the rest are from all over the world. And Hamburg has the largest Afghan and Portuguese community in Germany. And because of that, I grabbed myself a little Portuguese pastry. If you know me, I love pudding pretzels, and this is just like a pudding pretzel, but with more pudding, and it's in a cup, so it's great. Berlin is definitely more international overall, and you'll most likely hear English being spoken in the streets. Ultimately, here people speak less English than in the Netherlands, but in a way it could be also a good thing if you want to learn the language. Then you can actually practice it a little bit, because Dutch people will quickly switch to a language you're more comfortable in. I wanted to buy a new book to read, so I went to the biggest and most rated bookstore. And they had a really big English section. Almost too big, to be honest. And I had too much to choose from, honestly. And they have this book about Harry Styles' style? They have multiple books about Harry Styles? Honestly, I couldn't find the books that were on my checklist. But a person working there at the bookstore just randomly came up to me and said to buy this book, and I was like, alright, let's give it a try. And I did read this book, and I did not like it. Unless you like Hallmark cheesy movies with a lot of miscommunication and unnecessary spicy scenes, this is not a book I would give my friends to read. Still a 2 out of 5 though. Ultimately, if you're looking for a more low-key life, without big sacrifices, Hamburg is your choice. If you want to live in Germany. A little bit more quieter and more beautiful architecture than Berlin, in my opinion. In terms of getting a job here, to be honest, I'm not too sure. In my field of being a graphic designer / illustrator / creative, I didn't see as many job advertisements as Berlin. And it's typically how it goes if you don't know the local language, or if you don't have a good network, or you don't really know where to look, which is kind of my case. If you love nightlife and you don't want to learn German, Berlin would be the better option for you. And Hamburg, I think, is a little bit more expensive than Berlin, but you can also get higher salaries here. Salaries? So all in all, let me know what you think. If you disagree or agree with what I'm saying. If you want to see more videos like this, consider supporting me and buying me a little coffee. If you want. Good luck with anything that you're doing right now. And I'll see you later. Bye-bye.